This is a fan-generated show. If you'd like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our new Rumble channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Obama's True Legacy: How He Transformed America. There's a reason why Mike Huckabee calls it a ferocious and chilling read. Order it now at Amazon.com or at FrontPageMag.com. Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, another fantastic program with another fantastic guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember we're a fan-generated program, and as always, we are suffering, I guess you could say, from the persecution and shadow banning of the deep state. So please help us as much as possible. Go to YouTube and Rumble, subscribe to our Rumble channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click instant notifications on each of the channels. Leave as many comments as you can. Press like as much as you can. Also visit jamieglazov.com. Subscribe to our newsletter there, and if you have some extra finances, please help us out. Follow me on Twitter at jamieglazov. And as always, be supporting Annie Cyrus at liveuptofreedom.com. And backed by popular demand, Jack Cashill, a writer, producer, and the author of the most recent book, and of his most recent book, ASHLI, The Untold Story of the Women of January 6th. Jack, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Jamie, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. I'm talking to you from a hotel room in Lafayette, Indiana, as I'm driving cross country this week, and decided to stop at the home of my alma mater, Purdue University, the sanest big university in America.
Well, fantastic. Great to have you here. We wish you safe travels. Jack, so much happening. Let's start with Tampon Tim. Very interesting choice for a VP. If the polls are correct, we now have about half of the country supporting communism and a lot of other policies that are, I would say, evil and positioned in the twilight zone. What are your thoughts about Tim Walz?
Well, it's not who Tim Walz is so much as who he's not. He's not Josh Shapiro, right? The logical choice, the choice you make if you really want to win an election, you really want to send shivers down the back of your opposition, is you pick a rising star from the state you have to win, right? And not choosing Shapiro, the Democrats telegraphed that they're more intimidated by their Hamas base than they are by their Jewish base, or they're more respectful, I should say, of their Hamas base than they are their Jewish base. They figure Jews aren't going to come to their convention and mess it up, This is their way of buying peace in Chicago. It is the primary motivator. There may be other motivators, as you know, but Kamala doesn't want to be outshone, so you pick the blandest and dullest looking guy in America to be your running mate. But it's they'll be debating this choice for a long time to come.
Well, thank you, Jack. But definitely, Democratic Party shifting more and more away from supporting Israel, shifting more and more in the direction of supporting Hamas and anti-Semitism. And Tim Walz, I saw a clip of him the other day. He really loves Ilhan Omar. I mean, to have a person that's coming into power in the United States that loves Ilhan Omar, this is very interesting.
Yeah, especially what's interesting, too, is that the Somalian community is probably the greatest granny harvesting operation in America, where you can get the most votes with the least amount of sweat, because these people are going to vote for whomever you tell them to vote for. And I was working with James O'Keefe a few years ago when they busted this Somalian American boasting on Snapchat about these hundreds of absentee ballots he had harvested, and he was taken to the polls. And then when O'Keefe, then with Project Veritas, reported on this, they said, oh, it was likely some sort of, what did they call it? Some sort of conservative plot. It wasn't true. Well, here is this guy, a Somalian, and O'Keefe was working with people within the Somalian community who did not like the fact that their votes were being bought and sold in a car with literally hundreds of ballots. And he's tossing them up in the air like they were, like rappers do in Money and gangster videos, and saying, I got all these votes, I got all these votes. And they also caught several other exchanges from money for votes in Minneapolis. And what Walz wanted to do, and what he did do, is in 2023, they made it even easier to harvest votes. They passed a whole set of liberating measures that make it pathetically easy to vote illegally in Minnesota. So that state is probably lost anyhow. Pennsylvania, there still seems to be in play. And so then if the Democrats lose, that choice will be second guessed for a long time to come.
Thank you, Jack. I saw this other clip of, he's changed the flag of Minnesota. It's this other flag, and I think Somalia has something to do with this new flag. It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
It is. First of all, Jamie, you may know this answer. How did Minnesota end up with hundreds of thousands of Somalians in the first place? What did we do to deserve that,
Yeah. Well, Jack, I get a little bit emotional talking about this. I got through public school without tampons in the male washroom. I just don't know how I got through that time. It was a difficult childhood and youth. But now boys in public school in Minnesota have tampons in their bathrooms, thanks to Tim Walz. This is...
Hey, fortunately for you, you started menstruating later than most boys, Jamie. So you were spared the embarrassment,
This is so... There's something so evilly twisted here. What is this about?
The real breakdown right now is with the American media. I was thinking about this today. In 1984, as you know, Ronald Reagan won 49 states. And the only state he did not win was Minnesota. And the only reason he did not win it is because they knew we were going to win in a landslide. So they pulled all their advertising. So lest they totally embarrassed Walter Mondale, right? If that election were being held today, it would be like this election. It'd be too close to call. In 1980, given the state of the media today, Jimmy Carter would have been elected to a second term because they simply would have covered up all his deficiencies. People wouldn't have, they would have said that he was the greatest president ever, and that this inflation you think you're looking at is a mirage, and those Iranians, those hostages held in Iran they deserve to be there. They would be covering for him every step of the way. When you look at the difference between then and now, 40 years later, you see where the breakdown has come. This media now is unabashedly propagandistic. They're not even embarrassed about it anymore. And if you've lived, fortunately, I'm one of the things that comes with having been around for a while and paying attention to politics for a while, is you can see that evolution or devolution. And what happens, unfortunately, is that people who were reading the New York Times 20 or 30 years ago and are still reading it today, they read it then thinking it was the authoritative newspaper. They're reading it today, still thinking it's authoritative, and it's not. It's become, Pravda on the Hudson. It's a worthless piece of propaganda. It's not even good propaganda because it's so obvious.
Well, Jack, during the George Floyd riots that devastated Minneapolis and other cities, Minnesota was burning. Its third precinct police station was burning. Everything was burning, the rioting, and just so much violence. And Walz just sat around and wouldn't call out the National Guard for a certain time period. He was enjoying that destruction, wasn't he?
Right. His bride, the Marie Antoinette of Minneapolis, was saying, let them smell the smoke of tires, let them so they can feast on that. What's interesting about this is that the left operates now as though there were no internet. Jacob, I believe it's Jacob Fry, the mayor, who's sort of a Justin Trudeau wannabe. He looks like him, actually. He's kind of styles himself that way. Even he was saying to Walz, get me some National Guard. They're destroying this city, right? And it took him 3 days, and finally prodding from Trump to get it. Now, there was I don't know if you've been following this today, but there was an extended interview with Trump was involved. I think Walz was involved, and Trump was finally saying, well, finally, like you did something good. You finally called in the National Guard, right? And after Trump was weighing in on it very heavily. And so the Democrats are running, here's a clip of Trump praising Walz for his handling of the Minnesota thing. They're shameless. They don't care. In fact, it's hard to believe a governor could have mishandled it as badly as he did. He was getting it from both the left, from the mayor, and from the right, from Trump, and he's still held out for 3 days. By the time they sent him in, just like at the Capitol, by the time they sent the Guard in, all the damage had been done. They were just mopping it up. And Minneapolis, which had, for years, this, Jamie, had been a sort of a model city, safe, clean, harmonious, is now a hellhole. And it was a more abrupt transition than even San Francisco or New York City.
It's surreal, Jack. It's surreal. When I was a kid and I was studying leftists and leftism, yeah, for sure, they were in power on various realms. But, it was more kind of like maybe the crazy professor somewhere on the campus. But now they're in power, and very much so in power. And it's every checklist, every little box is checked off with Tim Walz. So Minnesota is also a mecca for abortion, and they love that. Yeah, they love child sacrifice, and it's also a place for trans refuge where, kids can come and get mutilated, and if parents oppose that, well, certain punishments might come into play, including taking the kids away. This guy to me seems like a monster. What do you think about this whole abortion and trans position of his?
Well, you're right, Jamie. It's like it's as though they were trying to say, who is the most in-your-face proponent of the demonic in America? And with a smiley face, he looks like a Republican. He looks like the local president of your local Rotary, but that doesn't mask the reality of what's going on. If Americans knew who Walz was, if Americans knew who Kamala was, this could be a 49-1 election. The difference is the media, I've simply lost all interest in telling the truth. And so that'll make it an interesting election, more interesting than I'd like it to be. We'll see. I mean, what is it? Kamala saying now she won't take any questions until after Labor Day? This is a person who's never gotten a vote in any kind of presidential referendum. They're getting nervy. It's like in your face. They're defying us,
It's almost like the fix is in and they're just kind of mocking us. Like I said, every box is checked off. So Tim Walz, we've got a guy here that clearly cares more about illegal invaders than about American citizens. And he wants to give driver's licenses to illegals, free college to illegals, free healthcare to illegals. What's that all about?
Well, it's, he's like so many of these people. It's interesting the way the left uses language. Usually they create these kind of euphemisms and mandate that people use them. So instead of saying abortion, you say reproductive rights. Well, no one's challenging anyone's right to reproduce. They're challenging your right to kill your babies. Marriage, gay marriage became marriage equality, and one changed after another. The one change that is reflective of what actually happened is a shift from the word liberal to the word progressive. Because liberals could have fixed values. Like the liberals in the movies, anyhow, believe in equal justice under the law, and they believe in due process and fair play and whatnot. The liberals in the movies are the Atticus Finches of the world, or juror number 5 in 12 Angry Men. But progressives, at the risk of tautology, progress. That's what they do. They're like sharks. If they don't swim forward, they die. I don't know if that's true about sharks, but that's what we're told. So they're always having to move forward. Now, if you're a liberal, you run the risk of becoming totally irrelevant if you don't keep up with that progress. And if you're a liberal who's aspiring to national prominence, you've got to stay in front of that curve. You can't be caught lagging behind. One of the, Jamie, I don't know if you noticed this, but one story that seemed to have been missed in the transition from Biden to Kamala was the role of Barack Obama. For years, we've been told, and we've been telling ourselves, although I've been cautioning because I've written a couple of books on Obama, that he was the real power behind the throne, the puppeteer behind Joe Biden's puppet. But when they announced Kamala taking over and Joe stepping down, the Clintons were endorsing that before even Biden knew it happened. Soros, little Jr., was endorsing it, and Huma Abedin were endorsing it. Obama was left behind saying, hey, shouldn't we have some kind of process? And then he started getting attacked from his own left flank saying, hey, get on a program, Mac. The decision's been made, the die is cast. And so then finally, a day or two later, he got around to endorsing Kamala Harris. He got left behind. He's a natural liberal who tried desperately to keep up during his 8 years in the White House. He's not a leader. He's a follower. He likes his creature comforts a little too much. He likes those dirty martinis and the house in Martha's Vineyard and the mansion they're building in Hawaii. But the forces that be, and we still don't even know who they are swimming like a shark and defying everyone to keep up, or else they'll get eaten.
Thank you, Jack. Very profound. And definitely you bring up this very, very crucial issue of language and how they steal language, how they use words, how they use imagery. And also we keep an eye on the spiritual war and how it's done. So I'll just kind of throw this out there. I often think about how the Lord, our Lord, gave us the rainbow after the flood and what the rainbow represented. But guess what movement and ideology took the rainbow and mutated it into something that means something else? When Jesus at the Last Supper, and I think it was at the Last Supper, but he was saying, this is my body, which will be offered up for you. My body. And we know what that means and represents in terms of Christ. And then all of a sudden in the pro-choice movement, we see my body, my choice. It's kind of like a twist. And there's some theologians that say that this is the way that the demons want to hurt the Father. But they play with these words. They play with the imagery. Even in terms of mood and what it says, like I remember I studied exorcism for a while, which was a very scary thing. And I regretted I studied it a little bit because you have to be spiritually equipped. It scares you very much, but I don't regret it in the sense of that so much of what was frightening there confirmed the reality of Jesus Christ and how afraid and terrified the demons are of Jesus and even the mentioning of his name. Now, I'm not, it might seem like I'm rambling here, but I'm getting here to something. So they say, and the theologians and the exorcists were saying that before the exorcism, a lot of the possessed that were about to be exorcised, were going to be the target of the exorcism, they would engage in a lot of frivolity. that everything's cool, everything's all right. And they would say to the priest, hey, you want a coffee, double, double? You want sugar? You want, they put on this facade of frivolity that everything is great, right? And we see this in the left a lot in terms of their disposition. I remember many years ago, I don't attend these things, these LGBT parades or whatever. This is not really my thing, and I try to avoid it. But I can't remember. Somehow, for some reason, I was there geographically, and they were there was this parade or something. But I remember they had these water guns, and there was a group of us, and we weren't really into this thing, and they could tell that we weren't. And they began to squirt us with the water gun, going, lighten up. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget being told to lighten up, because I'm the miserable one. I'm the one that's behind the tide. And they're on the curve of human history. They're on the cutting edge of progress and happiness, and we're just these miserable people in the past. Let me just put all that together, what I'm saying here, because it's connected to what you're saying. They're not just playing with language. They also play with the mood and the disposition, and we're the happy ones. We're the ones on the cutting edge of progress, and you're way behind and miserable and stuck in the past. They're very clever in all these maneuverings, aren't they?
Well, they seem to be. It's only in the last few days that they've decided that they're the party of joy, right?
Yeah. Just sec. I'm so sorry. I just want to be careful with my language. They think they're clever.
Oh, right.
And they think they're clever, and they're clever in how they manipulate many people. But I want to emphasize that they're not clever at all when it comes to the long term and to the real situation. Yeah, but go ahead.
Right. Just in the last 2 days, they've become the party of joy, right?
You're right.
I mean, by the way, the last 4 years, they were joyful. And let's face it, any group of conservatives who have a get together are going to have a lot more fun than any group of liberals. The liberals, in my experience, are sour, bitter, angry. They're frustrated, and but you're about the language, though, and this is interesting. In my book, ASHLI, the Untold Story of the Women of January 6th, I dived into, because I have a language background. I have a PhD. I kind of spent a lot of time in those quarters. I did a chapter called Shibboleths. And you know what a shibboleth is, Jamie? Familiar with that term? It comes right out of the Old Testament. And what happened, and my knowledge, I'm a Catholic, so we don't study the Bible really. I confess in advance, but and some chapter of the Old Testament, shibboleth was a word that the Israelites could say, but their enemies could not. So if you were trying to infiltrate, right, and they'd say to you, say shibboleth, and they would say, then they'd have to execute them or imprison them or whatever. So it's the word that insiders know that outsiders don't know. So the insiders create their own language. Thus, they create, and their own symbols, like you say with the rainbow. They create words like marriage equality and reproductive rights and gender-affirming care. How's that one, right?
Yeah.
But in the run-up to the 2020...
And of course, and anybody that doesn't agree with them, racist, fascist, homophobe, transphobe, etc., etc. But go ahead.
And after the election in 2020, they went into overdrive. So, I mean, even before that, because for us, voter integrity, they term voter suppression, right? You want to see your driver's license, they say, well, that's voter suppression. We say it's voter integrity. Immediately after the election, they coined the phrase the big lie to challenge what was obviously the shoddiest election in anyone's memory, became the big lie. Their term of art, their shibboleth became free and fair, right? And then they would go so far as to say the most free and fair election in American history. I mean, they'd say things like that. Abraham Lincoln knew the election results on the night of 1860. Before he went to bed, he knew the election results, right? And all they had then was pencil, paper, and telegraphs. And And then on the day of January 6th, the phrase insurrection was in common parlance by 2 p.m.
Yeah.
By 6 p.m., the George Bush Center was putting out a formal statement denouncing the insurrection.
Yeah.
Mitt Romney was at the microphones by 4, denouncing the insurrection.
Yeah.
The term was always inappropriate, wildly inappropriate, defamatory, but and I don't say let them get away with it, because most of us fight it at every turn. They've dropped the phrase insurrection. And, it does its share of damage in the interim.
Thank you, Jack, so much. Definitely control the language and you control the people. And Gramsci also talked about, forget about politics, control the culture, because once you grab control of the culture, then you control the people and politically. As I'm around due to some of my athletic activities, I'm around also a lot of quite a few younger people. There's these young women that I overhear a lot of the time, and they, I just can't wait to have a trans son. Oh, can't wait if my son will be gay. And this is very, very widespread, especially here in LA. And where did they get these ideas? Who taught them this? But these are the people who will be voting for Kamala and for Tim. And this is scary. Now, Jack, just wait, I wanted to ask you, you said I'm a Catholic and I don't read. What did you say there? You don't read?
Catholics are not keen historically on actually reading the Bible.
Right. Protestants more are, yeah. I think a lot of Catholics, we think Catholics kind of get their 3 readings at church and maybe don't, right.
And I go to a traditional Latin mass, Jamie, which is pretty hardcore. We didn't shut down during COVID. You will never see a Kamala bumper sticker in our parking lot, right? But
I don't think we're not saying that that's a good thing. I think that Catholics should be reading the Bible. You're just saying that it's Protestants that are more Bible centered, right?
That's right. And I agree. I think Catholics should read the Bible more. And for a lot of us, it becomes a good late life pastime, because there's a lot we don't know that should know. I got sobered up when we entered a table quiz contest, and it was the category of the Bible, and my team got wiped out on the Bible category. So it was I said time to start reading.
Thank you, Jack. We're going to take a quick break with our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit mypillow.com.
And that's right. Make sure to go to mypillow.com or mystore.com and use promo code GG21. And you can get a discount of up to 60% off all the amazing products. And by doing so, you're not just going to get amazing products, you're going to be helping out Mike Lindell and the Glazov Gang. And if you like one-of-a-kind handmade art, make sure to go to lutfstudio.com and purchase resin art pieces made by our producer, Annie Cyrus. Use promo code Glazov to get special discounts. And once again, you're going to be helping out the Glazov Gang as well as the freedom fighter and truth teller, Annie Cyrus. We are back with Jack Cashill. Jack, you are an expert on many things, including Kamalagate. It appears that Kamala even was complicit in this. There was this version that she was at the Capitol during this scary insurrection, and her life was therefore threatened. And so therefore the people that were there doing bad things were threatening her life, and so they're in jail for a very long time. But then it kind of comes out that she actually wasn't there. But there's people serving long sentences partly or largely because of the version that she was there. She's not doing a lot to clear it up. What's going on here?
Well, I'm going to have to plug my book here. In doing research for my new book, ASHLI, The Untold Story of the Women of January 6th, I came across something that I wasn't expecting to find. And I hats off here to other people who did some of the hard work, Darren Beatty, Julie Kelly, et cetera. But in putting it all together, I focused on the women of January 6th. I focused on 10 of them. Kamala is the 11th woman in this escapade. And she is the one who, of anyone, deserves to be in jail. It's she. What happened was that several things happened at 1 p.m. on the day of January 6th. So, for instance, Ray Epps and his crew, just before 1, begin to breach the exterior perimeter of the Capitol. The guys who built the gallows on the Capitol grounds left up for 5 hours. Capitol Police didn't take them down. At 1 p.m., they put up the noose and the crossbeam. Just at 1 p.m., they're easily identifiable, but none of them have been apprehended, right? At 1 p.m., a guy mounts the scaffolding outside the Capitol for the inauguration scaffolding, and he's like authoritatively waving people on, come on, into the Capitol. Fully visible, never identified. At 1 p.m., the pipe bombs are found. One at the RNC, the other at DNC. $500,000 reward, still unidentified. There is something going on. Kamala, I believe, was not part of this plot. In fact, I think she almost screwed it up. She stumbled into the plot. And she was at the DNC on the morning of January 6th, which is fine. There's no problem with that. What's not so fine is that, unbeknownst, I think, to the people who were plotting this, or the people who planted the bombs, was that the Secret Service would be there with her. They would do a couple of sweeps of the building with their bomb-sniffing dogs. Now, the Secret Service is on a hot seat now. So last week, this came up in a hearing. And so the question is, why didn't the Secret Service find the bombs? Well, maybe that's not the right question. The right question may be, were there bombs there when they did their sweep, an hour or so before Kamala got there? After the bomb is found outside the DNC, Kamala is whisked away to some location, not the Capitol. She was never in the Capitol during the riot or any time leading up to the riot. And as you said, that meant that the people for that whole year who were charged with being in the Capitol had their charges amplified by the fact that they had entered her restricted space because she was a designated protectee of the Secret Service. She was never there. She kept her mouth shut. She was the dog, and like in the Sherlock Holmes story, that didn't bark. All the other Democrats were claiming AOC, in fact, claimed she thought she was going to be raped, pure narcissist that she is. And, there's rapes that are common at Trump rallies. You remember, I see them all the time. They were all looking for their moment of stolen valor. I was there in the battle in the front. Kamala, not a word to this day. Joe Biden, not a word to this day about the bombers and Kamala's proximity to the bombers. In the Jamie, in the Sherlock Holmes story from which that phrase is taken, the dog that didn't bark, Sherlock is investigating the theft of this racehorse. And he says to the groundskeeper, he said, well, what time did the watchdog bark? And he said, funny thing, the dog didn't bark. And Sherlock Holmes deduces, well, he didn't bark because he knew the thief, right? In this case, I'm not saying Kamala knew the thief, but I think she learned very quickly that the bomber was an ally, not an enemy. And this is a plot they did not want any attention called to. And to this day, they don't call attention to it. It is just a little too, it reminds me of, if you're watching like Dateline NBC and, the husband killed the wife. I don't even know why we bother with these shows. It's the same plot every show. But so the cops come into the kitchen and they don't see any signs of, damage or blood or anything, but everything smells of Clorox, right? They say, this place is too clean, like you scrubbed the crime scene. In Kamala's case, I think she too obviously scrubbed this crime scene. I think the riot at the Capitol was provoked. I mean, we had our own yahoos, participating, I get that, I admit that. But to a large degree, I think it was outside forces trying to incite a riot, trying to embarrass Donald Trump. And to do this too, Jamie, they have to make one other oversight, which both the J6 committee and Jack Smith, the prosecutor, did. They blamed Trump for inciting the riot, but he started his speech at the Ellipse an hour late. So had he started on time at 11 a.m., his people, scores of thousands of people, would have been arriving at the Capitol at 1 p.m., just when this all was taking place. Instead, he started at noon. So at 1:10 p.m., when he says the words that are alleged to have incited the riot, we got to fight like hell, we got to fight. Well, the riot was already well underway, and it's a 45-minute walk from the Ellipse. So Ray Epps and those guys, they didn't go to the speech. The guys who hang the noose, they didn't go to the speech. The people who were, on the scaffolding telling people to come in, they didn't go to the speech. At 1:06 p.m., a crowd of protesters in front of the west side of the Capitol were being, pelted with munitions from the Capitol Police. And Trump still hadn't even said, you got to fight like hell. And he's 45 minutes away. So the whole thing is fraudulent. And we have 3 months to get the word out.
Fascinating, Jack. It's incredible that you're almost one of the only people talking about this. This is not discussed almost anywhere. Let me try to crystallize this here for a minute. You have a fascinating article at American Thinker. The title is Kamalagate, the Harris Deception that Doomed Dozens of J6ers. So they said that the prosecutors were even claiming that Kamala was at the Capitol on J6. So because she's there, then there turn out to be some bombs laying around. So the bombs are threatening Kamala. And so Trump supporters, obviously, this is their narrative, put the bombs there. So J6ers go to jail for a very long time because Kamala's there and there's bombs. Then it turns out that Kamala wasn't there. And then there's a big question mark as to where these bombs came from, if that's one way of saying it. So we see something that raises our eyebrows here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kamala, I think some people were ignorant. I think the prosecutors were led to believe that Kamala was at the Capitol, or they assumed that. Because it was embarrassing for them, because they had to go back and amend all those filings. Once the Politico broke the story a year after the fact. All Kamala had to say during that year was, hey, no, I was never at the Capitol. You know, she didn't get to the Capitol till like 8 p.m., well after all the dust had settled and the rioters had been cleared out. She was never threatened. And her presence at the DNC is a wrinkle they weren't anticipating. I don't think the planners of what I see is I think it's an inside job. I don't think they expected her to be at the DNC. I didn't think they expected there to be DNC Secret Service contingent with bomb sniffing dogs there. Because that calls into doubt the whole idea that the bombs were planted the night before. The bombs had 1 hour kitchen timers on them. If they were planted the night before, what was that about? You know, unless they were there just as props to be discovered at 1 p.m., which was kind of convenient.
Well, look, what our intelligence services obviously were doing to Trump, are doing to Trump. We even look at the attempted assassination. We look at what they did with Michael Flynn, with Roger Stone, with so many people. We don't put it past them in terms of what you're suggesting here. UCLA student Christian Secor, I think, is in jail till this day, if I'm correct. What's going on with him and why is he in so long? And it's connected to what you're referring to.
Yeah, I just used him as an example because I mean, there were probably more than 100 people who were challenged the way he was. What happened is that Christian Secor is a UCLA student. He goes to the Capitol. He's kind of mischievous. He sits in the Pence's chair, you know, in the Senate. What is it? No violence. I mean, they acknowledged that they didn't do anything violent. And so once he's arrested, he's put in pretrial detention, right? Just for walking around the Capitol, being a goof off. So when it comes up for his hearing, the Justice Department wants to keep him in prison until the trial. They don't want him released, right? And as their argument, as the critical part of their argument, they say he threatened Kamala Harris because she was at the Capitol when he was at the Capitol. And I just picked his at random. He ends up serving 3 years in prison. I haven't followed up on his case, but the notion that he was that he had put Kamala Harris at risk was the reason that the DOJ was arguing that he should remain in prison until his trial.
So what do you make of all this? Why Kamalagate, and also why this complete silence about it? You don't see this. I mean, we obviously don't see this on CNN and MSNBC. I don't think The View is going to invite you on to discuss it. But I do not see this being discussed even in conservative media, a large segment of it anyway.
Well, there's been a fair amount of talk in conservative media. You know, there was a time, I used to be on CNN on certain issues, you know, those were the days. But, and it was, their silence was, because see, last week there was a hearing on this, on the role of the Secret Service at Butler, PA, and on the role of the Secret Service on January 6th, the deleted email or text rather, right? There's all part of the review. The conservative media gave a fair amount of attention to that hearing. They didn't give much attention to as much attention as they should to the J6 part.
Right.
But the major media just simply ignored it, as though it didn't happen, as though Trump weren't nearly killed 3 weeks ago, right? That's history. That doesn't even matter anymore, right? So I guess you know, it's amazing the lengths the legacy media are going to now to create a just perverse notion of contemporary history. Half of America just looks at it and thinks this is utterly, totally ludicrous. And the other half is saying, oh my gosh, boy, I'm glad that, whatever they're selling. I'm glad we're the party of joy. I'm glad Biden did deceive us for 4 years. They believe anything they're told. I mean, they're ridiculous. I know these people, right? I'm related to them.
But Jack, so Kamala, whichever it is she's very silent about having her life directly endangered by the terrorist bombs. She's very quiet about that narrative because the narrative's not true. Biden has remained silent about it. Yeah, so it's not true, but they're not saying a word about it.
She's beyond quiet. She's mute, right? Every other Democrat who was in the Capitol that day has been bragging about it. They've been dining out on it for the last 3.5 years, right? I mean, almost literally. I mean, because I was in reviewing it for my book. Which book was that? ASHLI, the Untold Story.
It's a fantastic book.
I went through a lot of the quotes. I mean, virtually all of them were talking about how they thought they were within inches of being killed and raped, and it was like as though the Comanches were going through the Capitol. Or can I say that? Because now, are we supposed to believe now the Comanches were nice people? The Visigoths, the Huns. I don't know. When you read the ACLU's account of January 6th, you would think it was being written by the ACLU chapter of ancient Rome, like a week after the Visigoths ransacked Rome. It's so hysterical. But given that hysteria, her silence on this is, as they say, I hate to use cliches here, but deafening.
Jack, so in terms of the bomb, we have Secret Service detail that did a sweep and didn't find anything beforehand, but then a bomb somehow shows up later on, right?
Yep. And then the question becomes, and this is a question that the Butler PA event highlights, is where does incompetence begin and where does conspiracy end? Incompetence hides a lot of sins. And then there's something else beyond incompetence, which is negligence, which is a kind of a proactive form of incompetence. They run together in these cases. So the case of the bomb sniffing dogs at John J6, were the dogs ill-trained? Did they not do a good sweep? How did they not miss them? Or were the bombs even there? Were the bombs viable? I can't believe they were viable. We know they had classic 1-hour kitchen timers on them. And we're told they were set the night before. We have video evidence of someone setting the bomb. Someone who was reviewing the evidence made an interesting observation, and that is the person setting the bomb pulls on what seems to be her shoulder straps. And there's a woman who made this observation. She says she's adjusting her bra straps. This is a woman we're looking at. This was the observation by one, kind of a critical observer. So there's a lot of talk about this in certain quarters, but not in major media. And the conservative media now is really just, it's very effective in many ways. Thank God for Elon Musk. But it's a collection of individual outfits,
Oh, Jack, you're sounding like a conspiracy theorist. But when I looked into JFK, Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., the way those buildings fell on 9/11, I used to think a lot of the people that talked about that stuff were crazy, but I've been studying it very much in the last 10, 20 years, and eyebrows go up about a lot of stuff, and eyebrows should be going up about what you're pointing out in terms of Kamalagate. Jack, we got to go, but briefly, please, tell me if Kamala and Tim win, and then Kamala's meeting with Putin and Xi and starts laughing the way she laughs. What do you think about that scenario?
I think they'll find it amusing because they'll find the downfall of America amusing, right? If I'm Putin or if I'm Xi, I'm putting my money on Kamala. I want her to win. I'm sure, and my guess is that in 2016, they put their money on Hillary. Why would they? They had a good thing going with Hillary. She and her reset button, and and they let Crimea go, and then we have the 4 years of Biden. They get to take a big chunk of eastern Ukraine. No, they're you wake up every day just hoping this country's still in one piece.
But Jack, I mean, Biden has done. Obama did a great job in terms of what his job was to do to this country. Biden's doing a great job in terms of what he's meant to do to this country. They say that when the Roman Empire fell, by the time the barbarians were at the gates, it didn't matter because it had crumbled from within. I don't think that the people who want to destroy America need to worry about external threats and how successfully they can destroy America. If Kamala and Walz get in, it's definitely the end of this country, I think.
I'm a little more optimistic than you.
Okay.
I would say when I look at Western Europe, I would say England's cooked. I would say France is a little more pugnacious. They're not quite cooked yet. I think most of Western Europe will fall. United States isn't Rome. United States has a well-informed, well-armed, active 50% of the population. So the notion that a couple clowns they'll try, they'll have some success, but there's a point at which the American people, the observant, the conscientious, the patriotic Americans will say, basta, enough, and that may come in 2024 or 25.
Well, we'll have to see what happens, but I think we're under a tremendous threat. I think we'll agree on that. And Jack, tell everybody why they have to buy and read ASHLI, The Untold Story of the Women of January 6th, and where they should be visiting to learn more about what Jack Cashill has to say.
They can go to my website, which is cashill.com. And I would recommend they buy it off Amazon because that's where publishers keep score, right? So, I mean, I buy my books through Barnes & Noble, but just to thwart Amazon, but I would still recommend you go to Amazon. As to just my thoughts on the election, here's one caveat. When people say this is the most decisive election in American history, 1860, remember that one, right? No, we're not even close to that, right? And we survived that. Cost us 600,000 lives, but we survived it. So we'll survive 2024.
Well, we'll just end on me saying I hope you're right. But you and I are on the same side, and we are so grateful for Jack Cashill, for being a gentleman and a scholar, for being a truth teller, and for being on the front lines in fighting for the truth and for freedom and for America. Jack, you are a stand-up guy. Thank you for coming on the Glazov Gang.
Hey, Jamie, thanks for having me. You do great work and keep it up. Okay, sir?
So much appreciated. Thank you, Jack. Ladies and gentlemen, the book is ASHLI, The Untold Story of the Women of January 6th. Do not watch the Glazov Gang anymore until you read that book. We'll see you soon. Good night.